Ready for the truth. Bring it on.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
Do you want the whole truth?
I don't think you're ready.
Governments don't control things. A government can't control the economy without controlling people.
It's Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth.
Well, I'm just going through another delay. There's another delay. Yes. The implementation of postponing the online enrollment in some of the small business exchanges. Wow. It's falling apart. I wonder why. Obamacare. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth, proudly on AFR Talk. If you just joined us, Pastor Free prayed through, even if he was cut off on air because of the top of the hour break, and I'm lousy at time. Occasionally, I'm like the Mike Martz of time management sometimes. But believe you me, if you put your name down, he prayed all the way through, and the prayer took place and was made and heard. And yeah. So we're going to talk to Avik Roy in just a moment here. And I'm setting this up because we've spent an enormous time on healthcare. And we've done that over the last 3 years. Why is that? Because when we speak of our healthcare, we're speaking of our lives in so many different ways. Thank you, Captain Obvious. We're also speaking to a government that never got the American people on board, passed a bill they did not even take the time to read. They were going to find out what's in it. And once they are in this part of our lives, in essence, they control the insurance companies to the point of where they're going to spend their money. And it is a step to a single-payer system. Tomorrow night, we will have a pretty extraordinary segment that features Saul Alinsky and numerous clips of Democrats and supporters of single-payer and how this is part of the strategy and how we've seen that as it gets implemented. So that is ahead. Right now, we're going to fix our eyes to Avik Roy and our ears. Now, if you follow healthcare in any way, you know who Avik is. He is a senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute. He also served as a healthcare policy advisor to Mitt Romney. He has sparred with members of Congress, and when sparring, you don't want to spar with this man. I feel sorry for Ezra Klein at times, the Washington Post, but I appreciate the fact that he's willing to engage in the sense of going back and forth, and you can find out more about that engagement at Forbes.com with Avik's blog. Avik, welcome back. How are you?
Hey, how are you, Crane?
I'm doing well. I just wanted to get your response to this. I think so many of us would like to have you as the response to a clip that's played. And when we see the news, we all of a sudden go to Avik Roy. And now we have the opportunity to do so. So here's the president today, okay? Here's the president today and rallying the troops when it comes to health care. Let's go with clip number, well, you know what it is, clip number 3, I believe. Roll it.
When you hear about the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, and I don't mind the name because I really do care. That's why we passed it. You should know that once we have fully implemented, you're going to be able to buy insurance through a pool so that you can get the same good rates as a group that if you're an employee at a big company you can get right now, which means your premiums will go down.
Okay. Speaking to small business, that was what the question was referencing. Avik, what the president just said, is it true?
It's ridiculous. It's not just not true, it's ridiculously not true. I mean, to say that small businesses' rates are going down, every business in the country is seeing their rates go up. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can ask any business owner in the country, and they'll tell you their rates are going up. Because Obamacare does so much, not just with the regulatory schemes of the law, but with the tax increases and the fees. You know, it drives up the cost of insurance for pretty much everyone who has private coverage today. Not everybody, but almost everybody.
Okay, and I want to get to the people and possibly the businesses that it doesn't. We'll get to that in a second. Here is another clip, B16, talking about individual premiums and lowering those and how the exchanges are going to, well, you've just got to trust President Obama. He became an insurance salesman today. Roll it.
Because we're all in this together. That's when America's at its best. That's what this country's all about. But we need you to spread the word. But you don't have to take my word for it. If you talk to somebody who said, well, I don't know, I was watching Fox News and they said this horrible. And you can say, you know what? Don't take my word for it. Go on the website. See for yourself what the prices are. See for yourself what the choices are. Then make up your own mind. That's all I'm asking. Make up your own mind.
All right. Speaking to students, tell me, Avik,
Well,
is the president?
I have two reactions to that clip. The first is when the left says we're all in this together, what they're really trying to say is you have to pay more so that other people that we like will pay less. So that's what the euphemism "we're all in this together" means to the left. That's point number one. Point number two is that's exactly what he said. Well, go on the website and make up your own mind. Well, that's exactly what I did. I went on the websites, and I and a couple of my colleagues from the Manhattan Institute, we went through every single insurance carrier filing that's been posted on an Obamacare exchange. We compared that to what you could do to buy health insurance today, and we found that the rates for the average man who shops for coverage on the Obamacare exchanges are going to be double what they could afford today.
Double?
Double. 99%, 95 to 99% for men, and 55 to 62% for women. That's the analysis I put up on my Forbes blog yesterday.
Yeah, it's awesome. It helps us all. I mean, I'll just speak for myself. Without you, man, we sometimes I'd be lost without the incredible research that you all have done on that issue. Tell me something, Avik, when he makes these statements, obviously he can point to a state, a particular area, a particular section of a particular demographic and say, we've lowered health care premiums.
Definitely.
Can he? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
So look, lower income people whose incomes are around the poverty line or slightly above, will do well under Obamacare. So that's point number one, because the subsidies will be large enough that they'll insulate poor people from the rate increases. That's point number one. Point number two is that there are heavily regulated states like New York, that already have Obamacare-like laws in place and have had for 20 years. Those states aren't going to be as affected by Obamacare because the things that Obamacare does to drive up the cost of health insurance, those states already have those regulations. So there are going to be a couple of states like that where Obamacare will have either a neutral or slightly positive effect in terms of reducing rates because those states have already messed up their insurance markets. But the vast majority of states with the red states where it's largely Republican governments that have had lightly regulated insurance markets, they're going to get hammered.
Okay. Now, what do you say to Dick Durbin, who talks about Judy getting health insurance for the first time? She's not going to have to worry about that. It's going to be locked in under the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. How do you contend with that? Because what they are saying is in debating, and I've done that before too, and you'll hear about these people finally have it. You just mentioned low income, poverty level. It's going to be better for them. What's the response you have if you want to replace it or defund it, however it may be?
Well, first let me say that I completely support the goal of allowing poor people to afford health insurance, making it so that poor people can afford health insurance, and making it so that people who've been down on their luck and have had a gap in their coverage and gotten sick or gotten hit by a bus or gotten into an accident, we should try to look out for those people. But we could have done so, and we still can do so, in a way that didn't cost the government or the taxpayer an additional penny, that would have actually made health insurance cheaper rather than more expensive, and that would have reduced rather than increased government spending. Okay,
so you support the idea, but now they have it. I'm not trying to be argumentative here, but
sure.
This is what happens, Avik. You've been in these debates, but they already have it. And what you're going to do is you're going to take it away. And how can we count on, because they didn't have it before, how can we count on them actually making sure that happens? You're taking something that's given, set, ready to go. They have it. You're taking it out of their hands. Avik?
Well, that's one of the, so that when Ted Cruz and Mike Lee and those guys say, look, we got to shut down the government now, or risk shutting down the government now, because if we don't, then Obamacare is here to stay. That's the logic they're using, and I agree with that up to a point. I think that repealing Obamacare is going to be really, really tough, if not impossible, because of those reasons. Having said that, you can make substantial changes. You can make really big changes to the law that have the equivalent effect of repealing the things that we really hate about Obamacare, while making insurance cheaper. I think there's a way to do that. I'm going to write a lot more about that over the next couple of months.
Tell me, politics, art of what's possible, the idea of making this possible. What are we seeing in your, scholar, you head of Mitt Romney's plan, in essence, a senior advisor to him, and I'm thinking to myself, you know this better than anyone. You know the politics of it, and my question is what you just mentioned, the idea of pulling some things out, delaying it, and maybe defunding it if that goes through, however it may work, however it ends up. Are the American people on board yet, especially in light of what we've learned from the unions who are now saying, hey, we didn't get our carve out, so we don't like this either?
Listen, you think Obamacare is unpopular now, which is what all the polls say. Wait until people find out how much insurance is going to cost them next year. People are already getting those notices. I have so many comments on my blog. So many people tweet at me with this info. I'm sure some of your listeners call in, too, saying, I just got my notice from my insurer, and my rates are going up double, triple, 50%. People are getting those notices. And if you think Obamacare is unpopular today, wait. So I think, Ted Cruz and those guys, they should have confidence in our ideas and know that, look, if this law is going to fail, it's going to fail next year also. Yes, there might be some people who get a benefit, those people on the low end that we talked about. But you know what? There are going to be a lot of people who are hopping mad about the fact that their insurance rates are going up. And here's what we can do. We're going to be able to look, because there's so much, you saw my blog post, there's so much variation among the states, between the states that do well and the states that do poorly under Obamacare. We're going to be able to study that and say, you know what? Let's look at the states that have done a good job keeping their insurance prices low. What have they done better than the other states? What are the regulations in Obamacare that are driving the costs up? What can we do to unwind or repeal those regulations? Things like that. I think we can do a lot to make that better.
Avik, Dick Durbin mentioned the 40-plus times that the Republicans have passed legislation out of the House and about repealing Obamacare, but they've also, about 20% of the time, I understand, there were some things that actually got signed in, some modifications made. So when we look at the idea of passing these things, do you think that is an effective tactic to say, hey, look, all they want to do is get rid of it, when in fact the administration seemingly is open to occasionally tweaking this?
Yeah, there have been a couple of really small changes to the law, that Republicans have driven the bus on, and that's good. But I think they will be open to changing the law so long as the underlying principle of covering everyone isn't jeopardized. I think that's the thing that that's their line in the sand that they will never surrender on. But I think they would be open to changes so long as that. Look, the hard left will oppose anything because they want single payer. But I think moderate Democrats, red state Democrats, are going to be open to changes, constructive changes.
And Senator Manchin and his support for delaying the individual mandate for a year, how big is this?
That I thought was very, very important, and it says, that validates something I've been saying all along, which is if we had led with delay rather than the shutdown strategy, I think we could have picked off a lot of Democrats for just that reason. There are a lot of Democrats who want to say, look, I like universal coverage, I like expanding coverage to people, but I also am responsible, and I want to make sure this law goes into effect before, the right way without fraud and mistakes and waste and abuse. So I think we could have picked off a lot of Democrats on that, and we still can, but time is running short.
Final question, if this were left in place, does this lead inevitably to single payer? And was that the design in your estimation?
I don't think that was the design. I think the design was just pass what we can get 60 votes in the Senate to pass. But yeah, certainly the hard left wants single payer. There's no doubt about that. But I think Obamacare will actually make single payer even harder. Because look, the exchanges, for all their flaws, they use private insurance. And the people who get that private insurance and are happy with it, they're not going to want that taken away from them to have a government plan. They're going to be okay with the insurance they get. So I think people aren't going to want to go to single payer. I think, if anything, it goes the other way. I think the exchanges can be the vehicle if we were able to deregulate them. We can use those exchanges as a vehicle for reforming Medicare and Medicaid and privatizing Medicare and Medicaid. Because remember, the exchanges are private insurance companies are on those exchanges. So we can do something with that.
Avik Roy, Senior Fellow at the Manhattan Institute, 2012. He served as a healthcare policy advisor to Mitt Romney. And you need to go to Forbes to check out his blog. Thank you, Avik, for taking the time tonight. It is always a pleasure.
Hey, all hope isn't lost. We got a lot to fight for.
Amen. Amen, brother. All right. Avik Roy, check out his work, and I'm sure you'll see him all over the place and hear him all over the place because he's just that good. And no, I happen to agree. I think when we look at what has taken place, I've said this about the economy too, and I'm not being Pollyannish about this. I certainly recognize how bad things are. I'm feeling it myself. I think we all are. I mean, in America, you're going to feel this. But this generation is seeing the failure of liberalism, of big government liberalism. And that's why when I hear people talk about, we need to, the moderate groups, and understand, when people are called a moderate, if they're a moderate, hey, embrace it. Don't get chipped off about us calling you a moderate or me calling you a moderate. If you're a moderate, that's it. It tells me where are your convictions and what exactly are they. Where's the line? Where's the line? Where's the line? Because what I've viewed as a moderate oftentimes is the support of leftist policies and somehow massaging conservatism to the degree of sacrificing conservative principles. So that's the moderate gang. Ronald Reagan, not a moderate, a conservative, over years articulated conservatism and stuck by it. And I love how people rip when you bring up Ronald Reagan. Oh, they want Ronald Reagan to come back. He's not going to come back. And no. What we're looking for are people to stick by their conservative principles. And we also recognize, I'll speak for myself, recognize that you do not change somebody's opinion by giving them half the argument and mollifying your point of view. And in essence, you undermine your case. Does that mean you need extremes? No. You need to support what you believe. If you believe in free market health care and you can point to the successes of how, well, let's look at where the government gets involved. Education, what are the costs? 400% increase that we've seen over the last 30 years, and that's factoring in inflation. So they've distorted the market greatly. Huge problem there, right? Okay. And healthcare. They've always been a part of it, over half, certainly today. And now we're even moving more to government control. What does that do? It takes away the relationship between the consumer and the provider. But if you're not articulating these things, if you're not going out and making the case, if you're compromising the principles and saying, yeah, we can handle an individual mandate. No, we can't. We can. The thing about Obamacare is it takes over the insurance agencies. And it tells them how to spend their money. Now, they can transfer that to us on cost, but inevitably this is the step. And so Avik and I have a different interpretation on that. But bottom line, it is the same general problem, which is government dictating what health care everybody gets and how it's administered. Now, if you think about government administration of product and service, you're looking at, on average, it's a 30% or 30 cents on the dollar actually gets to helping people when they have non-for-profits and those performing a service for those in need. Okay? So 30 cents on the dollar versus 60 to 90 cents on the dollar when it's done outside the government by a particular organization designed to do that. Now, why is that? It's because it's centrally what you've done is you've provided accountability. You haven't made it a huge bureaucracy, and you also haven't made it a works program, and you also haven't justified your program by saying we need more money, and in order to get more money, we need to have more people be a part of this, so we'll grow our budget, so we'll be around and we'll have jobs next year. And the idea of a government program being the closest thing to eternal life, Ronald Reagan did say, is just that. It's not basing the results, not basing the solving of a problem. It's actually you get more money if you exacerbate the problem. And when you get more and more people that way, and you're dealing with dollars that either have to be taxed away, taken by force if necessary, through taxes, and given through a program, a system that's terribly inefficient. Now you say inefficient. Well, it doesn't work. It's not going to help the people. You're going to need a lot more money and you're going to be serving a lot less. So if you're truly compassionate, is that the way to handle things? If you're truly compassionate, when you look at a problem, do you want to solve it or do you want to grow it? You say, well, it's obvious. No, this is the problem. When Dick Durbin brings up Judy, or somebody says, well, what about this person who gets a job through this program? It's like anything else. Well, is your goal jobs through a government program, or is it to build the best road at the most efficient price? Well, no, we want to employ as many people as we can. Milton Friedman said it best. Don't make it shovel-ready projects, make them spoon-ready. Get everybody a spoon, will employ a lot more people. That's the thinking. That's the mindset. And certainly, and I don't know if it was Franklin or someone else who actually talked about this, but it was the idea that as soon as this republic's over, as soon as we realize that we can vote pieces of the treasury to particular constituents, and it's ongoing, and it's locked in. And we've seen that on the state level, certainly, and that's why you see problems in California with the unions and the power that they have and locking that in. It's like FDR was against public service unionization in that way because he understood where the end game was. So here's the overall point, and in closing. Do you want to fix the problem? I don't see people as being compassionate when they exacerbate the problem or they go to the least efficient provider to solve the problem. That's not compassionate. That's ripping stupid. And in fact, it hurts. So it's pretty heartless as well. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. Live with honor in your life, compassion in your heart, and always keep the faith in Jesus Christ. Please go to the Facebook page of American Family Radio, Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth, nothingbuttruth.com. You can get there too. And remember that God created you. You're listening right now, there's a reason. He created you. He loves you. Wherever you're at, He loves you. And you're worth it. AFR Talk.